Do you know it only takes 7 seconds for someone to decide whether they respect you or not? And here's the surprising part. 93% of that first impression has nothing to do with what you say, but with how you present yourself and carry your energy. Ironically, the most powerful people are often the ones who speak the least in the room. After more than 10 years of working with leaders, negotiators, and even ordinary people who wield extraordinary influence, I've realized this. True power doesn't come from loudness, but from calm, mystery, and the ability to draw attention without saying a word. In this video, I'm going to share 7 silent yet powerful strategies, principles the Stoic philosophers used thousands of years ago that can still make you unstoppable today. Stay until strategy number 4, because if you miss it, you might be handing over your power to others every single day without even realizing it. Now, let's begin. Number 1. Master your emotions. Turn emotional control into strategic power. Have you ever been in a situation where someone deliberately tried to provoke you? They drop sarcastic comments, take cheap shots, maybe even make up stories just to see if you'll lose your cool. And then, the moment you react in anger, suddenly you become the bad guy in everyone's eyes, even if you weren't the one who started it. This is why emotional control isn't just a life skill, it's a form of strategic power. Psychologists call this amygdala hijack, when negative emotions take over your brain, forcing you to act on impulse rather than reason. The one who loses their temper loses control of the game. The one who stays calm keeps the upper hand. I remember once, during an important meeting, a colleague of mine, let's call him Daniel, was publicly mocked by another team member right in the middle of the room. All eyes turned to Daniel, waiting to see how he would respond. But he didn't say a word. He simply smiled, took notes, and continued his presentation as if nothing had happened. The funny thing? The very next day, the person who mocked him came to apologize. He said, "I didn't expect you to stay that calm." That calmness made Daniel the most respected person in the room. Lesson? When you react too quickly, you're playing by someone else's rules. When you stay calm, you force them to play by yours. Train yourself to pause for 3 seconds before responding to anything that irritates you. Those 3 seconds are enough for your brain to switch from reactive mode to thinking mode, keeping the power on your side. Staying calm in the face of what you can't control is like sending an unspoken message. You can't shake me. And that is one of the clearest signs of power, without saying a word. But calmness alone isn't enough. You also need your presence to speak for you, even before you open your mouth. And that's the power of the next strategy. Number 2. Commanding presence, the art of silent influence. Have you ever met someone who, simply by walking into a room, changes the atmosphere? No one tells them to, but suddenly people sit up straighter, lower their voices, and eyes start turning toward them. That's not magic, that's presence. Powerful presence doesn't require noise. It's built through posture, eye contact, pacing, and inner energy. Researchers at Princeton found that within the first 7 seconds, people decide whether they respect you, and most of that impression comes from body language, not words. I remember meeting Mr. Harris, a longtime client of mine. He wasn't tall, didn't wear an expensive suit, and walked into the room quietly. But the way he walked straight to the table, offered just the right smile, shook hands firmly, and looked each person directly in the eyes, it made me and the entire team feel like he was the one steering the ship, even though he hadn't said a word. Throughout the meeting, he didn't speak much, but every time he did, the room went silent. Not because he was intimidating, but because he radiated certainty, calm, and confidence. Lesson: the power of presence comes from how you carry yourself into a space, not what you say. Stand tall, open your shoulders, keep steady eye contact. Move just a fraction slower, as if you're never rushed. And when you speak, pause briefly before an important point so people feel the weight of your words. A strong presence is like an invisible business card you carry everywhere. It tells the world, I know who I am. I don't need to prove it. But presence alone won't build lasting respect. True respect comes from what you do, not what you say, which is why we need the next strategy.
Number 3. Actions over announcements. Proving worth without words. In a world where everyone is trying to speak as loudly as possible, the person who stays quiet and lets their actions speak is often the one most respected. Words can impress for a few minutes, but results leave a mark for years. Here's something I've learned. When you talk about your plans, people might doubt you, but when you show them results, they can't deny you. Psychologists call this the proof effect. Tangible evidence is always more convincing than any explanation. I remember an old friend, Michael. He used to talk endlessly about his startup ideas, bold concepts, detailed plans. But month after month, nothing actually changed. Then one day, Michael decided not to tell anyone about his new idea. He disappeared from social media, focusing on his work for months. When he came back, he didn't bring promises. He brought a finished product, already being used by real customers. This time, no one doubted him, because they could see it. Lesson: let your actions be your spokesperson. If you want respect, show up with results, not promises. When people see what you've done, they'll believe without you having to convince them. So before you tell anyone about your next goal, ask yourself, am I ready to show them proof? And remember, results don't need a microphone to be heard. But sometimes when you start producing results, people will try to undermine you with insults or personal attacks. How do you make them powerless against you? The answer is in the next strategy. Number 4. The power of calm, neutralizing insults without a fight. Here's a truth most people overlook. Reacting instantly to insults almost always makes you lose in the very first second. Because in that moment, you've allowed the other person to control your emotions and push your weakest button. FBI negotiators often say, the one who loses their temper loses control. And Stoic philosopher Epictetus believed that insults only live if you accept them. If you ignore them, they fall like a stone thrown into empty space. I remember watching Sarah, a former colleague, being publicly mocked by a guy in the company during a meeting. The air got heavy. Everyone held their breath, waiting to see how she'd respond. But instead of blushing or firing back, she simply gave a smile, tilted her head as if she'd just heard something trivial, and went right back to her presentation. I swear, the whole room felt like it had just witnessed a psychological knockout, and it was completely silent. A few weeks later, the guy who used to attack her stopped entirely. No one wants to fight an opponent who refuses to play by their rules. Lesson: every time you ignore a personal attack, you send an invisible message. My emotions are not your toy. Next time someone tries to get under your skin, pause for 2 seconds, take a deep breath, and let your silence do the talking. Sometimes the strongest comeback is no comeback at all. But even if you keep your calm, there's another danger: what you allow others to know about you. If you don't control that, it can be used as a weapon against you. Number 5. Information control, owning your narrative. Power isn't just in what you do, but in what you allow others to know. In a world where people are constantly observing, analyzing, and looking for weaknesses, oversharing can be a double-edged sword. Negotiators call this information asymmetry. When you know more about them than they know about you, you have the advantage. But when they know too much about you, the balance flips. The danger is, what you share doesn't just reveal facts, it reveals how you think, what you want, and where you're vulnerable. I had a friend named Chris. He was an open book, answering anything from family matters to work stress, even his promotion plans.
At first, people found him friendly, but over time, I noticed colleagues using his own words against him. When Chris said he was overwhelmed, they gave him urgent tasks. When he mentioned wanting a promotion, they maneuvered into his key projects. It's not always malice, but in competitive environments, information is leverage. Chris realized this and changed. He began sharing selectively, only talking about completed projects or things that wouldn't affect his personal strategy. Interestingly, people began to respect him more because they couldn't read him as easily anymore. Lesson: keeping things private doesn't make you cold or dishonest. It simply protects your safe zone. Before sharing, ask, does this help me or can it be used against me? When you control the story others know about you, you also control how they treat you. And once you've mastered information control, you're ready for an even stronger strategy, moving in silence to deliver a strike no one sees coming.
Number 6. Silent power moves, winning without warning. There's a special kind of power, not telling anyone what you're going to do, and then suddenly showing up with results that surprise everyone. This is the strategy of moving in silence, keeping the element of surprise to avoid being blocked or sabotaged before you're ready. When you announce your plans, you open yourself to 2 risks. 1, people unintentionally or intentionally give advice that derails you. 2, some will actively slow you down or sabotage you. I think of Naomi, a friend who started a business in interior design. At first, she shared every idea and project on social media. Sure, she got feedback, but much of it was doubt, negative criticism, or unhelpful advice. She began to feel pressure and lose motivation. Then Naomi changed. She worked in silence for 6 months, telling no one, not even close friends. When she launched, her product was better than anyone expected, and it was an instant success. No one had the chance to block or distract her. Lesson: silence isn't about hiding forever. It's about protecting your dream until it's strong enough to stand on its own. Share your plans only with people who need to know and can actually help you. For everyone else, let your results be the only announcement. As the old saying goes, the silent arrow hits the target. And once you've mastered moving in silence, the final strategy will help you keep that power for life by being unapologetically yourself. Number 7. Unapologetic authenticity. Living true as a power strategy. The fastest way to lose your freedom is to try to please everyone. It sounds backwards, but it's a trap most people fall into. We live in a world where every look, every opinion can be amplified with a single click. And when you start adjusting yourself to fit each group, each expectation, each standard, you begin to lose the most precious thing, your identity. Let me tell you about Elias. He used to be a master of fitting in. At parties, he laughed at jokes he didn't find funny. At work, he downplayed his achievements to avoid making others uncomfortable. With family, he hid his real dreams for fear of being called unrealistic. On the outside, Elias seemed like someone everybody liked. On the inside, he was tired, empty, and slowly forgetting who he really was. One day, he asked himself, if I have to act my whole life, who's actually living it? He decided to stop. From that day, he spoke his mind, whether people agreed or not. He stopped apologizing for being himself. And something strange happened. Some people drifted away, but the ones who stayed truly respected and valued him. His eyes changed from cautious to confident. His voice changed from hesitant to steady. And the energy he brought made people naturally pay attention. The Stoics were clear. True freedom doesn't come from being accepted, but from not needing acceptance. When you live authentically, you don't have to remember what role you played yesterday. You walk into every conversation with relief because you're no longer maintaining an image. And that makes you untouchable. No one can control someone who doesn't need their permission to exist. Lesson:
Don't apologize for being yourself. Your differences are your advantage, not your weakness. Live by your own standards, not society's checklist of shoulds. And if you're wondering, will this cost me some relationships? The answer is yes, but the ones that remain will be stronger, truer, and far more valuable. So we've gone through 7 silent yet powerful strategies. From mastering emotions, building presence, letting actions speak, staying calm under insults, controlling information, moving in silence, to living unapologetically yourself. If you apply these, you'll discover true power doesn't need to show off. It lives in how you control yourself, and that's something no one can take away from you.